Hey guys, Mr. Backerberg here. In this video, we're going to look at solving a formula for a specific variable. So as we take a look at this first example, we are going to solve this equation, w equals k times f times r divided by v squared. We're going to take that and solve it to get v alone. First thing we should notice is that v, or actually v squared, is on the bottom of the fraction on the right-hand side. So in order to get that off of the bottom of the fraction, we're going to have to multiply that v squared over to the left-hand side. So then we're going to get v squared times w equals k f r. Our goal is still to try to get v alone, so we've got this times w in there. So I'm going to divide w over to the right-hand side. So then we have v squared equals k f r divided by w, but we don't want v squared, we just want v, so I'm going to square root both sides. Now we should be careful when we're square rooting this. Anytime we square root something, we should throw a plus or a minus in front of that radical. So we've got plus or minus the square root of k f r being divided by w. Now our equation is solved for v, which is what we wanted, so we're done. As we take a look at our next example, we've got d equals the square root of 4a over pi, and we're going to try to solve for a. Now the first thing we should notice is that a is trapped underneath that radical. So in order to get rid of the square root, we're going to square both sides. So then we're going to get d squared equals 4a over pi. To get rid of that divided by pi, I'm going to multiply that pi over to the left-hand side. So we get pi times d squared equals 4a, and then in order to get rid of the 4 in front of our a, we're going to divide both sides by 4. So we get a equals pi times d squared divided by 4. Now this equation is solved for a, which is what we wanted. Now in our last example here, we are going to try to solve this for t, and we've got s equals 2t squared plus kt. Now, what I notice in here is that this looks like a quadratic equation because we've got that t squared in there. One thing that we've used for quadratic equations is the quadratic formula. And in order to use the quadratic formula, we need our quadratic to be written in standard form, which looks like ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Now notice we are using a different variable in here. We're using a t as opposed to an x, but that's okay. So what we're going to need to do is get this equation equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract that s over to the right-hand side. So then we'd get 0 equals 2t squared plus kt minus s. Now I'm going to write out the quadratic formula. It goes negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So as far as that negative b, or that opposite of b goes, b is what's in front of our plain variable with no power on it, so that's actually going to be this k value. So if I take the opposite of k, then that's going to be negative k plus or minus the square root of k squared minus 4. Now a is the number in front of our squared variable, so that's going to be a 2. C is the plain constant term without any variable on it, so that's actually our s in here. So our c value is actually negative s, and this is all going to be over 2a, so 2 times 2 is 4. Now we do have a little bit of cleanup work that we can do underneath that radical. So we've got negative k plus or minus the square root of k squared. Now in here we've got a double negative, negative 4 and negative s, so this is going to turn positive. 4 times 2 is 8, and we've still got this s in there, and then this is over 4. Now normally when we use the quadratic equation, it's x equals this answer, but here since we're solving for t, since t is our variable, it's going to be t equals this fraction. Now one thing we can do with this fraction is split it up, so we would have t equals negative k plus the square root of k squared plus 8s all over 4. And then we would also have t equals negative k minus the square root of k squared plus 8s all over 4. That's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching.